happens next. Go!
Welcome back to the Foster's Australian Formula One Grand Prix. Alan Jones, the winner of the World Championship in 1980, is alongside me. Alan, we were speaking to Mark Webber a few moments ago. He said that his team tactics would be to go in heavy into this race. Can you translate that for us mere novices of the sport?
Well, what he's saying is they're basically going to start the race chock-a-block full of fuel. A lot of people rely on different strategies. Some might start the race with half tanks, three-quarter tanks. By the way Mark's talking, he's going in with full tanks.
All right, and what advantage would he be looking to get from that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, with the changeable weather, I mean, if you were sort of 70% sure it might rain, I'd be tempted to go in a bit lighter and build up a better advantage, have a faster car, getting ready for the fact that you may very well have to pit prematurely to put on wets, and then you can make a fuel decision then.
Just we're perched pretty high up in the top of the stands here in our commentary box, and looking over to the southwest where the wind is blowing, it looks like it's pretty fine. It's starting to really lift the cloud cover, so I'd be almost willing to bet that we might get through the next 2 hours without too much rain.
I hope so, because a bit like Martin Brundle, I don't mind a race of changing conditions because it just brings in a little bit of extra drama. By the same token, I'm as keen as anybody to see who's done what over winter testing, because there's nothing like a race to show that up in terms of performance.
And this moment we're going through here, putting all the straps and the belts and the telecommunications together, it must be it'd be nice for the drivers when everyone finally gets out of the way and they can just drive.
Absolutely, that's the best part. I mean, these drivers can't even look down at their lap now because the chin part of the helmet is that wide. They can only put the helmet down so far, then it rubs against their chest, so it physically does not enable them to look at their safety belt or putting anything in, so all the mechanics have to do that for you.
And Alan, I better ask you, who do you think will win this Australian Formula One Grand Prix?
Well, look, you know, I mean, I don't think I'm really sticking my neck out, but I think on present form and given the performance of the cars, you'd really have to go with Michael Schumacher.
The race to the first corner might be the big part of the race.
Well, he actually stalled it a couple of times this morning on doing practice starts out of the pits, but that was in wet conditions, so look out if he does that.
All right, well, there you go. They're starting to get out of the way now. It's Rubens Barrichello on pole, Michael Schumacher alongside him, Ralf Schumacher behind him, the brother in the Williams, and David Coulthard in the McLaren. They're the first four on the grid. It's going to be a fantastic race to start the 2002 Formula One World Championship Series, starting here on the Foster's Australian Formula One Grand Prix. We're going to hand over now to our international callers. For the first time, it's James Allen sitting alongside Martin Brundle to call the Foster's Australian Formula One Grand Prix on Nine's Widewater Sport.
They drop the clutches off on the formation lap. This 3.295 mile Albert Park circuit, one of the most beautiful and spectacular, if not the most beautiful and spectacular of the Formula One Championship. A wonderful place to start. Martin, just talk us through this beautiful Parkland place.
It's a lap that has several similar corners, and that is, for example, turn 2 they were just coming out of, that opens up and allows you to release the car. So you need a car that, in fact, both arrows are on. Sorry to interrupt on that, but both arrows are parked on the grid. So Frentzen and Benaldi have, now you can see it for yourself now, what a disastrous start. They ran reasonably well in qualifying, but two arrows then sitting on the grid. They were 15th and 17th on the grid, but clearly something's happened. It must be a software problem, I would guess. They're not able to, if both cars have the same problem, it does tend to be an electronical situation.
Yes, Arrows were concerned about reliability coming to this weekend. They carried a lot of speed through the winter testing, and they had thought that they might actually get ahead of Jaguar this weekend. Well, they managed it in qualifying, but they're not going to manage it in the race. Now, Martin, these cars are going to be pushed over to the side of the grid. Is it safe to start this race, in your view?
Not from there, it isn't. Absolutely, unless they've got a hole in the fence there that they can back it into. They're right. Now the marshal's saying, look, don't leave them there. Get it across the track. They've got the best part of 2 minutes before the pack arrive back there, but is there a gap in the pit wall? They're going to have to bring it in the pit lane exit and reverse them out of the way where the safety vehicles tend to park. They can No, they can't change cars now. Unless there's a restart, it's too late. After that 15-second buzzer, you cannot change cars unless there is a shunt and a complete restart in this race.
So where are the front runners? Where is the grid? Are they going to make it through? Yes, it looks like they will. Frenson's off the track. They're coming through turn 13. So obviously there is an opportunity. I'm sure that the Ferrari technicians would have told Rubens Barrichello to hold them up to make sure we can clear the grid of the Arrows cars. We've got the cars off the grid, but one of the mechanics is stranded. He's stuck in front of the Ferrari area. He's got a massive great battery and lance to start a motor, and he's stuck there at the moment, but hopefully he'll be able to run his way off the track. There he is. And I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, would you, Martin? I bet the old heartbeat's beating a bit there.
Yeah, he should be really just dragging the battery along the start straight, but he is going to be able to clear it. Normally they sit for at least half a minute. Can he too get through the hole in the fence? And I think he can.
But of course, they've put the less holes in the fence this season as a result of the incidents last year with the fatality of the marshal, so it's not so many holes to dive through, but he's managed to get himself off the circuit. Looks like we might get this race started, all being well. Rubens Barrichello on pole position, Michael Schumacher alongside him, the field forming up.
Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard second and fourth on the grid. Look, pointing their cars already. Just cut away from that shot, but pointing their cars already to try to get on the green, the cleaner side of the racetrack. They're on the dirty side. Look at Schumacher. He's got a 20-degree angle on that car. So has Coulthard. They want to get over ASAP.
The tension mounts at Albert Park. Can Rubens Barrichello win from pole position? He hasn't won a race since Germany 2000. Will this be his day? 2 lights, 3 lights. You know what's coming, don't you? Ready? You ready? Let's go! Fantastic start by one of the Bentons. Ralf Schumacher challenges Barrichello. Michael Schumacher's got a poor start, but Ralf is motoring into second place, and he hits Rubens Barrichello. Huge accident! Oh my goodness! Rubens' rear wings off. There goes Ralf Schumacher. And I think we're going to have to restart it. There's an absolute yes. And one of the Bentons on fire. That's Jenson Button. Martin.
Total carnage. It started with Ralf hitting the back of Barrichello, flying into the air, and then everybody shunting behind in sympathy. Schumacher, Michael that is, was slow away. They won't fix that car, Jenson. You'll have to jump in the spare car. Unfortunately, that spare car is set up at the moment for Jarno Trulli. So Jenson Button, that's too much bodywork to repair. Ralf out of the race. I don't see a red flag situation at the moment. Can't see any signs on our computers that they have the red flags out, but surely they must do so.
That was the car of Olivier Panis, the BAR. There's Rubens Barrichello, the pole sitter. Here it is, Martin. Talk us through it.
And what you're going to see is Rubens coming over to take the line, and he pulls. In fact, no, that was. Yes, in fact, it was Rubens. He'd moved over to the right-hand side of the grid and started to decelerate for turn 1 and just completely caught Ralf out. Ralf clearly nowhere near getting on the brakes and just reared straight up the back, reminiscent, of course, of Villeneuve hitting Ralf Schumacher last year. And around goes the Ferrari through the air. Luckily comes down nose first for Ralf, and he has a fairly harmless tag with the wall. And there is Michael coming across the gravel. Coulthard in the lead of the race then. And then just carnage behind as everybody jumps on the brakes, and cold tyres, cold brakes, a lot of inertia, full tanks of fuel. You just can't slow them down. What a mess.
Both Saubers look like they've been affected as you look at the flames from Jenson Button's car, which is now stranded at turn 4. The safety car is on the circuit. So maybe they're going to try and run it behind the safety car while they clear the mess, which will certainly play into the hands of David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher.
Safety car deployed. Well, that amazes me, I have to say, with so much debris. And look, there were a lot of cars coming up the inside. They cut across the grass before they ever arrived into one, and that's why you had so many T-bone situations going. Here we see then onboard Ralf, and just connects, look, and so nearly that flipped over backwards, and he's a passenger just heading towards the inevitable scene of the accident.
Did you hear the engine noise though? When he's in the air.
He was still on it, wasn't he?
He really was.
Yeah.
But did you think Rubens braked a bit early for that corner? It seemed a little early to me.
Well, I think he put himself up the inside to cover his position. Michael was slow away alongside him on the grid. Rubens went to cover. There's no point in them running back. It's under safety car. It's not going to be red flagged. So we have a scenario where you cannot restart the race, even if the spare car is ready for you.
Bad news for the Sauber team, bad news for this man, Rubens Barrichello. So happy, so relaxed after getting pole position yesterday. We can tell you the driver's out. Jenson Button, Alan McNish, unfortunately, on his debut with the Toyota team. Felipe Massa, we've seen Rubens Barrichello as well, who's now talking furiously with Jean Todt, who's telling him, no, it's all over, Rubens, I'm afraid. Giancarlo Fisichella, a splendid qualifying for him, for Jordan in 8th place. He's out, Panis is out, Heidfeld is out, and Salo has come into the pit lane.
Yeah.
Are you surprised, Martin, then, that we're under the safety car?
Yes, I am, from a safety aspect and from a show aspect, if I'm honest. But when these cars have completed 2 full laps, that then means it won't be a complete restart of the afternoon. It'll be a continuation of the race. So there's no way these guys can get in the race now unless... Now look, Ralf had a fabulous start, and this is why I suspect Rubens went over to cover his... Ralf probably a bit ambitious, it has to be said, and Rubens started to come back onto the racing line, so lifted off slightly earlier than would normally be expected, and just completely caught Ralf out, didn't he?
12 months ago here at Albert Park, the situation was reversed for Ralf Schumacher. He was going along with Jacques Villeneuve coming along hard behind him. He got off the gas, Villeneuve hit him up the back. 12 months on, it's Ralf doing the hitting from behind. That, though, is the race order after that extraordinary first lap accident. Coulthard, Trulli, Montoya, Michael Schumacher, then Irvine in 5th place for Jaguar, having qualified 19th. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, James, Ralf Schumacher's just arrived back outside the Williams garage. He looks fine. It was a huge crash, went somersaulting over as we saw. It was a massive crash, but he is fine, just shaking his head, talking to Sam Michael, the Williams technical boss. Now, we think Kimi Räikkönen is coming in. We think he's damaged his nose cone. Yes, here he comes in for a stop. They have a new nose cone for him. They're currently taking the car off the jacks. They will change the tyres anyway. And yes, they've replaced the nose cone, putting a new one on with a new front wing assembly as well. He's gesturing towards Ron Dennis. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. But here we go. The tyres on, the nose is on. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. There seems to be something wrong with the back of his seat, James.
Maybe he's got some debris that's gone down the back. It's not really costing him any time. Because the safety car is out, he can rejoin, albeit at the back. But quite clearly, there's some debris or maybe some gravel. He went through the gravel. Raikkonen locked a wheel into that first corner, went very, very deep into the gravel, and probably just sitting on some sharp stones. Imagine having just one stone in your shoe. Well, a seat full of stones, and he's really not wanting to pull 3 to 4G around a racetrack without pressing into his spine. But he hasn't cost himself any time because the pack are behind the safety car. He will rejoin last, but hey, it doesn't matter this afternoon, does it? Because there's so few runners in the race now.
I'll tell you what, that is going to be worth watching. Kimi Räikkönen coming through the field in a very fast car from the back. This is played very nicely into the hands of David Coulthard, though, who now finds himself leading this race, having told you on the grid that he didn't think he had much chance of getting on terms with the Ferrari. The bad news, though, for David Coulthard is he's got Michael Schumacher still on the track in 4th place. Between him and Michael, though, are Jarno Trulli in the Renault and Juan Montoya in the Williams.
What they've got to do now is drive carefully. They save a lap's worth of fuel for every 3 laps that they're behind the safety car at this racetrack. So it will extend their requirement for their one, and I believe only, pit stop of the afternoon for those that I think are running the optimum strategy. So Coulthard then with Jarno Trulli behind him, Montoya comfortably in 3rd, and Michael Schumacher still menacing there, still got the fastest car on the racetrack. Don't think he actually ran into anything. He just ran out of space in turn 1.
He made a poor start, Michael Schumacher, from 2nd place on the grid, which is the pit wall side. And if you saw in the replay, he was right on the outside. He'd sensed the trouble coming, I think. Saw Rubens moving around, and he went down the outside, where the side of the crowd, or the outside of the corner, and managed to avoid all the trouble. So hopefully Michael Schumacher will have avoided any debris. Hopefully David Coulthard will have done likewise. He made a tremendous start from 4th place on the grid.
Coulthard P5 and P6.
Just before I came up here, as we look at Enrique Bernoldi running back, another driver who's not going to take the start. He was pushed off the grid before it even started. But I spoke with Eddie Irvine. He said, "You're not going to be too hard on me this afternoon, are you?" And I said, no, we'll see what happens. And what happens is that Eddie Irvine jumps straight into 5th place.
Some of these guys need to read their rule books more often. You can't start after the 15-second buzzer. You cannot change cars. Effectively, the race is underway to all intents and purposes. You cannot change cars.
So then, let's take a look at the full order. David Coulthard, Jarno Trulli, Juan Montoya. The gaps are irrelevant because we're behind the safety car. Nevertheless, these are the positions. You're not allowed to overtake until the safety car is pulled off and they've crossed the start-finish line to go racing again. In fourth place, Michael Schumacher. Fifth, Eddie Irvine. Sixth, Pedro de la Rosa in the second of the two Jaguars. Takuma Sato had a very troubled debut so far for Jordan. You just saw him flash through your screens there. The young 25-year-old Japanese making his first start in the Jordan team. Didn't get a lap in qualifying in the dry yesterday after a series of problems, an accident in the Saturday morning warm-up and a problem with his gearbox during qualifying meant that he was outside 107% in qualifying and had to be given the chance to race by the stewards. Mark Webber on his debut, the Australian driver from Minardi, in 8th place. When was the last time you saw a Minardi in 8th? Can he stay there? Alex Young in 9th and Jacques Villeneuve in 10th place. It's lap 4 of the Australian Grand Prix, and do not adjust your sets. They do seem to be going very slowly. That's because we haven't been racing. We've been behind a safety car, but now we are racing. And as they come across the start-finish line this time, we'll go green for lap 5 of the Australian Grand Prix. David Coulthard in the lead then. He's got a good drive out of the final corner. Jarno Trulli is second. Montoya is third. Michael Schumacher, the danger man, in 4th place. Eddie Irvine for Jaguar in 5th. De La Rosa 6th. Sato up in 7th place and Mark Webber in 8th. But watch Montoya, already he's looking racy. Already he looks like he's going to make a challenge on Trulli.
And this is the difficult part of the restart now. Their tyre pressures will be down 4 or 5 psi. Montoya very slow there. Has he got a problem? Or did he just outbrake himself in having a look around Jarno Trulli? But that's allowed and released Michael Schumacher immediately. But the tyre pressures are down 4 or 5 psi, so the ride heights are down 2 to 3 mil, and it's absolutely critical for the balance and the overall grip that you have. And this is where experience counts, no doubt about it, for a Grand Prix driver.
Williams mechanics out in the pit lane for Juan Montoya. Perhaps he's got some kind of problem. Certainly that looked like a very strange incident, not the kind of thing we expect from a driver of Montoya's calibre, if indeed it was a driver error. But the mechanic's ready. Maybe he's got a puncture because they're getting tyres out in the pit lane. But look at Michael Schumacher already crawling all over the back of the Renault of Jarno Trulli. Trulli will be looking for a podium today. He won't want to do anything stupid, but Michael Schumacher, he's looking for the win.
Yes, he is, and Jarno Trulli having to go defensive straight away. They're on lap 6 at the moment, and Trulli under an awful lot of pressure from Michael. Michael dancing around in his mirrors. Montoya then still in touch in the background, so it just looked like a temporary glitch. I think he just went in too deep into turn 3, and Michael then with a superb position for a slipstream down the pit straight, and the Ferrari is not particularly quick in a straight line because they're running so much wing. That's why they're fast around here, so much downforce. Michael was nowhere near overtaking him.
But he seemed to try. He was having a go at it, wasn't he? Why does he feel he needs to get by so quickly?
Well, he doesn't want Coulthard to get too comfortable out front, but all weekend Schumacher and Barrichello have not been quick in a straight line, but they've just been blistering in particularly the last sector of the lap. Why they're so fast around here, but that's when you pay the price of that strategy of setup, when you need to clear what is clearly a slower car at this time.
So put yourself in the cockpit of Michael Schumacher. You know you've got a car advantage over the guys in front of you. You know you've got another 52 laps to go. You know you've got a slower car immediately in front of you, but David Coulthard is getting away now, 3 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli with Michael Schumacher right behind him. What do you think?
Well, we're going to find out more about Trulli now. Remember, we've said so many times, Trulli qualifies well and tends to be a bit lacklustre in the race. Now it's all there for the taking. Will he step up to it this afternoon? He's certainly not going to give in easily, is he? The Williams mechanics have gone back into the pit lane, into the garage rather, so that's very good news for Montoya, who's now just lurking in the background there. We're not expecting a Williams stop. Thank goodness for that. Just 13 cars in the race at this time, and a race that typically has a high rate of attrition as well.
Indeed it does. All these new cars out on the track. Many of them fail the reliability, but Schumacher looked like he came out of that corner quite nicely, Martin. Down the pit straight again. What will he do this time? He's
going to have to make a big lunge when he gets there. Trulli tries to cover his ground a bit, and Michael then, he still can't get close enough. Trulli's got enough straight, and now Michael's got a problem. We know how fast that Williams is in a straight line. Can Montoya do anything about Mike? We've cut to a replay of turn 1. Trulli neat and tidy, held his ground, and Montoya didn't make it into turn 3.
So Juan Montoya, who made a mistake on the first restarted lap when he tried to get past Jarno Trulli, gave Michael Schumacher the opportunity to pass him. He is now right on the back of the reigning world champion, and we're going to see yet another one of these great battles, hopefully, between Schumacher and Montoya that we enjoyed so much last season.
Well, remember, both Williams have had very hot brakes this weekend. At one point, with Montoya's car, they had to put the front brakes out with a fire extinguisher. They actually caught fire when he stopped in at the pits for an adjustment. So I would imagine his brakes are having to be run very cool, and we know the cars are fat on fuel. Brakes here are critical, and I think that's why cars tend to fly here as well. You've got very high-speed arrivals into a lot of big stops on what is effectively a street-style circuit, and therefore I think Montoya's just not got the confidence under braking that he needs.
Look at Michael Schumacher crawling all over the back of Jarno Trulli, trying to make him make a mistake. Well, there's an old saying, make hay while the sun shines. We haven't seen too much sun this weekend in Melbourne, but David Coulthard is doing just that, pulling out faster sector times all the way. He's now 4.5 seconds clear of Jarno Trulli. Make that 6.6 as Trulli crosses the line. Schumacher not close enough this time, and Coulthard is getting away at the front.
Well, the one clear overtaking spot, I think. Oh, and he's lost it! Trulli's lost it on the exit, and that is surprising to see. What a bad mistake there for Jarno Trulli. Really poor mistake. Surprising with traction control that he was able to get it that far out of shape. Really was. So that's bad news for Coulthard. 6 seconds up front. But he needed Jarno Trulli to hold up Michael Schumacher and Montoya. Here he goes on the exit of turn 2. Very surprising, and he will be surprised too. Jarno Trulli will be more surprised than anybody that the traction control, the electronics, allowed his car to get that far out of shape.
So was that his fault or the car's fault?
You've got to put it down to the car. He should be able to nail it out of there without any difficulty, unless he had a right rear puncture or something like that. Remember, a lot of debris on the racetrack from that first corner incident after the start, and well, disaster for Jarno Trulli. What a shame.
His heart will have sunk, and so will that of Flavio Briatore, the Renault team boss. Trulli in the wall from a very promising second position, and that's great news for Michael Schumacher, who now finds himself right behind. And we've got the safety car back out again, Martin, because Trulli's car in a dangerous place. That's terrible for David Coulthard, having built that big lead, but Trulli's car bounced back onto the track, and it's the only safe and sensible decision, I think, to bring the safety car back out again. What an eventful few laps we've had here at Albert Park. We're only 9 laps into this motor race, and we've only got 12 cars left. You're looking down there at Enrique Bonaldi.
Yeah, they've obviously restarted that car, and Bonaldi will be 9 laps behind. So Bonaldi has joined the race. Remember, he couldn't start on the grid, so both arrows now in the race, albeit a long way behind.
So lap 10, it's the second safety car period here in Australia. Coulthard leading from Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Irvine in 4th, thinking all his Christmases have come at once. He might even get points today. Certainly looks like it. Kimi Räikkönen has carved his way through the field up into 5th place. And Takuma Sato, on his debut after the worst 2 days of his career, probably on Friday and Saturday, well, isn't that just motor racing? He's in 6th place at the moment. A long, long way to go yet, though. It's lap 11 of the Australian Grand Prix. It's all going off here in Albert Park, Australia. Jacques Villeneuve and Enrique Bonaldi have been into the pits. Bonaldi's 8 laps down, but Villeneuve is in the race in 10th place. We've only got 12 cars running who are in contention, and anything, literally anything, could happen from here on in. A couple of things that look likely to happen. A terrific scrap, though, between David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya. And there they are behind the safety car, the second safety car period of the race so far.
Yes, and just to be clear, the 2 arrows are able to start later, providing they don't change cars. So that's why you're seeing them in the race, albeit at the back. And Kimi Räikkönen, while we were watching Michael Schumacher trying to pass the unfortunate Jarno Trulli, who I'm sure either had a right rear puncture or his traction control electronics let him down for that spin coming out of turn 2. Kimi Räikkönen came through the field straight up to P5, so that'll be exciting to see how much further he can get. Irvine in 4th, he'll be under pressure from Räikkönen soon, but can Coulthard now stay ahead of the 2 in the centre of your screen? David Coulthard always says, I love being out in front. I feel in control. I prefer to be in front than having to chase.
Louise, you're down there with Ralf Schumacher, I understand.
Ralf, that looked like a very nasty moment.
It was. I mean, it was a great start. It's a shame that I couldn't make use out of it. I mean, Rubens changed the direction twice too much. That was the main problem about it. I mean, he was braking a fraction too early, but that is down to his decision when to brake. I don't want to say anything about that. But he simply moved too much, and that's what caused the accident at the end of the day.
You seem to have taken this quite well.
Yeah, I mean, it's another racing incident. You never, I mean, I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. He just tried to defend his position without thinking what he was doing. I tried to overtake him. That's it. It's racing.
Should the race have been stopped, do you think?
Not really. I mean, Charlie made his point pretty clear last year that he wouldn't stop a race only for starting an incident. That has simply two reasons: that the drivers learn to be a bit more cautious into the first corner and into the second, which I think is right. And you come around another first corner incident, don't you?
And we have a restart here in Melbourne, Australia. Sorry, we're trying to cut through that interview, but the communications wouldn't allow us to. David Coulthard's gone off the track, a brake lockup. As you can see, Michael Schumacher there behind him, and Juan Montoya in third place just makes his way through as Schumacher's grandstanding watching David Coulthard go off.
Disaster for Coulthard. He tried to bolt in front of the pack to build himself an advantage, locked a wheel and went off the track before the restart, and that allowed through 4 cars. Coulthard down to 5th now, and he will be kicking himself. He really absolutely tried to get away and build a gap, and that put Michael Schumacher out of his stride. He went a little bit deep before that last corner, and that allowed Montoya to get a good run down the pit straight. He's on the racing line, and Montoya will sweep through with a little bit better grip. Michael giving up early, realising, hey, I've lost this one already, and well, very opportunist. Now, you know why, don't you? Montoya, IndyCar racing, he's so used to making the best of restarts under the yellows, and his brain was more in gear than the others.
Well, Michael Schumacher's been around for 161 Grand Prix. In fact, today he equals Ayrton Senna's total starts, 161. He's seen a few restarts in his time. He ought to know the way around, but you remember Brazil last year. What happened at the restart? Juan Montoya passed Michael Schumacher. Certainly give the German something to think about, I would imagine. It's the 3rd or 4th time now Montoya's passed him. Now, Montoya, after yesterday's qualifying, was saying, don't look at these timesheets, don't believe all this. He said, I didn't get a decent lap in, Fisichella blocked me on my hot lap. These Ferraris, yes, they're fast, but the gap is nothing like as big as it looks today here in qualifying. Give me a decent race condition tomorrow and I'll show you what I can do, even though he was starting the race from 6th place. Now he's in the lead, he's got a good car under him, he believes the tyres are better than they've shown throughout the weekend, the temperature is going up, and the whole pendulum of Formula One is swinging towards Juan Montoya.
And the Minardi then of Alex Young running wide into what I believe is turn 3. David Coulthard's passed Irvine, he's now up into 4th, so McLaren 3rd and 4th. Montoya a full second faster than Michael Schumacher on that opening lap, but Michael appears to have pegged it back a little bit now, doesn't it? But Juan Pablo Montoya really had his brain in gear for that restart, and now the gap is pretty similar. In fact, it's Michael who's a couple of tenths up so far in this lap.
Well, a lot of people, as they come up behind Takuma Sato, probably to lap him. Sato dropped down to 10th place now from 6th. Whoa, that was close, and Michael Schumacher having a look as well, as Montoya was temporarily unsighted through 15. Montoya closes the door, though, through 16, gets the gas down on that massive BMW power plant and hopes to stretch his legs away from Michael Schumacher down the straight. You heard Martin tell us that Ferrari have put a little extra wing on that car. Michael Schumacher is not going to be able to get past Montoya in a straight line. He's going to have to do it through stealth. He's going to have to do it through a corner by making the Colombian make a mistake, possibly even in the pit stops. Who knows? But we talked about a championship battle between these two. We didn't think we'd get it quite this early.
Well, it's been the talk of the winter, hasn't it? Will Montoya establish authority and seniority over Michael Schumacher? And he certainly put a good move on to take that lead, but now Michael with clearly a much faster package with everything up to temperature. A man who was a full 8 tenths faster than any of them last time around is David Coulthard down in 4th place. He is going to be so angry, so frustrated at what was a silly mistake on his part, but Michael then nowhere near on the way through 2.
We've seen a few mistakes today, don't we, already? It is, I know it's the first day back at school for a lot of these drivers, but they've been testing throughout the winter. Surely some of these mistakes are a bit off-kilter, aren't they?
I think it's because of everything's cold. They're really struggling to find grip around here. Usually there's been a lot of running around here. The V8s are out, everything is out, laying rubber down onto the racetrack. And it just hasn't happened with the changeable conditions this weekend. And I think this track is much slipperier than we're used to.
Well, talk about slippery. Michael Schumacher seems to have the edge through this final sequence of the lap. He gets alongside Juan Montoya. Maybe Montoya's just playing with him, who knows, because he knows he has the extra power down the straight. Yeah,
Montoya had to go defensive, and it cost himself a lot of time. And Michael, with a good slipstream, we saw he couldn't even overtake the Renault down there. So Montoya, I don't think would be an easy car to pass in a straight line.
Did you see him look in his right mirror there? It was like you say, "Come on, if you think you're hard enough, come on."
Yeah, but hang on, he's still having a look. Michael has so much more confidence under braking. We've seen Montoya struggle all through this amazingly active race. We're just on the 15th lap. There's been so much action already this afternoon, but a clear Achilles heel at the moment is under braking for the Williams.
So you think the Williams has brake problems? He's not able to get them. Oh, there's David Coulthard just going off. I don't know if that's a different incident from before. That's the second time Coulthard's gone off onto the grass because he threw away the lead in turn 15. So that's a separate incident, but still at the front, Montoya and Michael Schumacher. And Martin, you believe that Montoya's got a brake problem?
No, I don't think it's a brake problem. I just think the car's not good under braking. I think they're having to keep them super cool to get them through this race. And that is why Michael is so much stronger, I think, into the slower corners. And then it's pretty much even Stevens, isn't it, down the straight. But if Montoya can get a clean run through the corners, he's okay. If he has to move offline to get defensive, then he's really under pressure.
Schumacher will have been sitting behind him and watching this. He will have computed that. You said before, Martin, that Schumacher seems to have a 20% or 30% of his brain he doesn't use for driving the car. He just uses for thinking about what to do next. And he's certainly got a good drive out of that corner.
And that's what I mean when Montoya has to go defensive. Now you're taking a tighter line into the corner, and Michael surely will get such a good run on him through the exit. Montoya went to cover that apex, and he really had to drive to keep Michael behind him rather than the optimum line, and that's put him on his back foot. But still, he's positioning the car well. And look at Raikkonen, keeping a watching brief then in third place, just on the back of this scrap for the lead.
Raikkonen got in front of Coulthard then when Coulthard made that mistake, obviously, so Raikkonen up from 5th to 3rd. But what fantastic motor racing at the front of this 2002 Australian Grand Prix. A brilliant way to start the new season. Juan Montoya and Michael Schumacher, the two most fancy drivers. Well, if you add David Coulthard in as well, two of the three most fancy drivers in this year's championship, going at it hammer and tongs, and this is only lap 15 of 58.
Now we need Montoya to hold this lead for as long as possible, because both McLarens are significantly faster. Be nice to see them just cruise up to the back of this squabble, wouldn't it? But Michael really menacing now. But Montoya's not a man that's going to get easily flustered, is he?
Well, I was saying he was probably thinking, come on then, Michael, if you think you're hard enough, there's going to be a bit of that today, a little bit of chicken going on. He knows he's got a little bit of a weakness that Michael Schumacher can exploit. It comes under braking, as Martin has pointed out to you. They both will know now that Kimi Raikkonen, another pretty feisty customer, is closing up behind them. He's got a point to prove, hasn't he, on his debut for McLaren, to show that he's the worthy successor of Mika Häkkinen in that car. Now Michael Schumacher right under the gearbox of Juan Montoya as they come down to turn 1. He goes to the outside line. Montoya blocks. He takes a tighter line on the exit. Michael Schumacher is alongside him, side by side out of turn 2, and Schumacher is through into the lead. Juan Montoya into second place. A great move, Martin.
It was. Montoya just took too long being defensive. You're only allowed to move across once, but he didn't need to stay to the right that long, and made the turn into the first corner much more acute. And it gave Michael an easy run through after that. So I think a little bit of a technical error there, you'd have to say, from Montoya, and just gave Michael Schumacher a clean run at him on the exit. And now we'll see how fast he is, and now we'll see what can Kimi Raikkonen do about the Williams.
So lap 16, lap 17 we're working on, and Michael Schumacher leads from Montoya in second place. Raikkonen is third. Although he's been in the pits to change his nose cone, that's how much he's made up of ground. Coulthard fourth, as Martin was saying, those two McLarens significantly faster than Montoya and Michael Schumacher, about a second faster, but it may be because of the pace that Montoya was running with his brakes. That's Benoldi off, he's down in, well, he's not even classified now, he's 8 laps behind. We've got 11 runners still going. Michael Schumacher from Montoya, Raikkonen 3rd, Coulthard 4th. Irvine still in 5th place for Jaguar, ahead of his teammate Pedro de la Rosa. Mark Webber just outside the points on his debut for Minardi in 7th. His teammate Alex Young is still 8th. Jacques Villeneuve, 15 seconds behind Young in 9th. And then Mika Salo a lap down in 10th place. And that's Kimi Raikkonen. Helmet looks a bit like Mika Häkkinen's, doesn't it, from the front?
It looks very similar to Mika, doesn't it? And did you see the pieces of carbon fibre flicking up off the curb there in the first corner from that start line first corner incident? And that is what slices the tyres and gives you a puncture. Now Michael's putting the fastest lap of the race up front. Michael Schumacher, now he's got some clear air in front of him, a 1:31.2, and that makes him comfortably the fastest man on the track last time around.
So Juan Montoya's prediction that maybe the Williams would be able to keep pace with the Ferrari in race conditions on the Michelin tyres, not been borne out. We're on board though with Kimi Raikkonen.
You'd have to say Montoya's actually very slow at this time. He's back in the 33s, and Michael's in the 1:31, so he really is off the pace, and that's why the McLarens are homing in on him.
On board with Raikkonen, got this reputation as a really feisty, aggressive young driver. Let's have a listen to his the way he drives this car.
Manually downshifting there, choosing not to rely on the automatic aspect. You can pre-select with these cars, but we saw Raikkonen working away with his left hand, trying to hit down the box, and this is that difficult last corner, 130 miles an hour on the exit. It's an accelerating corner, which is why the cars are working overtime, and we're just cutting away, unfortunately, so we can't see just how fast Montoya's car is in a straight line. Raikkonen keeping a watching brief. David Coulthard just 4 seconds behind that squabble.
Nice bit of onboard though, I enjoyed that. Very good to see Kimi Raikkonen in 3rd place, watching Juan Montoya. Yesterday in his press briefing, Juan Montoya was talking about Raikkonen. Here we are on board with him again. He said he really is a feisty chap. He's a real strong racer. I'm looking forward to going wheel to wheel with him. Well, today he's going to find out a bit more about him, I think.
Yeah, trouble is they're now 2.5 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher up front. Schumacher has a 4.7-second lead, and this is the kind of performance we were expecting, that we predicted, really. Sadly, I don't want him to disappear into the distance like that, but now really it's a fight for 2nd place between Montoya, Raikkonen and Coulthard.
We're being told that Frenson's getting a black flag. As Raikkonen goes down through the gears, this very fast sequence towards the end of the lap. Frenson being black flagged for leaving the pits when the pit exit light was red, we're just being told. So that's why the arrows will be brought in. Going down the gears to 2nd gear, picking up the speed then out of turn 16 into 17, up to about 175 miles an hour as they cross the start-finish line in 6th gear.
And Montoya's picked up his speed, a 1:31.8, so a full couple of seconds. Where did that come from? Why did he suddenly... We've seen this characteristic of the Michelins before, where they're steady in the early part of a run and then just find more and more grip, but suddenly Montoya's just got on with it. This is turn 4. Raikkonen very clean and clear through the corners, driving nicely, and Louise is the Jensen button in the pit lane.
Yes, I am, Martin. An incident-packed Grand Prix so far, and for you as well.
It wasn't really much of a Grand Prix for me, but yeah, it wasn't the best ever. I was taken out of the first corner, Heidfeld came down the grass, and then just crashed on top of us. That was it, really.
You're smiling about it.
I'm laughing at the blokes thinking I'm Jarno Trulli behind me. That's it, really. But yeah, it hasn't been the best race for me, and obviously, or the whole team, really. But yeah, we'll be fighting next time, and just can't wait to get back out there.
Do you know what happened to Jarno?
I really don't know. We've seen it on TV, but I don't know the reasons for it.
Thanks, Jensen.
Both arrows then under investigation. One has been black flagged. Frenson has been black flagged for leaving the pit lane. Remember, they were pushed off the line. He then chose to rejoin the race with the red light on at the end. The red light is on, as the safety car is approaching the pit area, and he bolted through that. A black flag means you are out of the race. Good night, thank you, go home. There's no ifs or buts about that one.
Been an eventful weekend for the Arrows team. With the news, Tom Walkinshaw and his associates have bought what remains of the Prost team. They bought their entry to the 2002 World Championship and the cars and the intellectual property rights. Everybody's on tenterhooks to see whether or not a Prost of some description will turn up at the Malaysian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, or possibly the Brazilian Grand Prix in 4 weeks' time. Walkinshaw says Brazil's definitely the target, but it may happen for Malaysia. We'll see. A very strange situation then brewing up with the Prost team and the Arrows team, but it's certainly not been a good day on the track for Arrows. Both cars pretty much out of the race.
Michael Schumacher still 2 seconds a lap faster than Montoya, Raikkonen and Coulthard, who are lapping pretty similar times now, just 3.5 seconds apart between them. But Michael Schumacher 8 seconds ahead with a 1:29.691, as you saw briefly on the bottom of your screen, a new fastest lap of the race. Irvine then is some 5 seconds slower than race leader. Irvine in the Jaguar, 5th place man, 5 seconds down. Michael Schumacher turning it into a virtuoso performance.
Mark Webber in 6th place for Australia. Thanked everybody in Australia who's ever helped him anywhere along his career to get him to this point. He's in Formula One now, and doesn't Australia know it? The whole place has been handed over to him. I mentioned before, plenty of t-shirts saying Advanced Mark Webber Fair and Waltzing Webber. They really have got behind him and his team principal Paul Stoddard, another Melbourne local this weekend. And Webber in 6th place, would you believe it, a dream debut for the young Australian.
He's doing so well, isn't he? A single point here. But imagine that. Minardi didn't score a point for the last 2 years, is it? And if he could get a point, first Grand Prix of the weekend with an Australian driver, what a fantastic result that would be for the local crowd. Just 10 runners then in this race, and as you see, Raikkonen getting well out of shape between turns 1 and turn 2, and Louise is with Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens, Ralph said you changed your line several times, but ultimately it was a racing incident. Is that how you saw it?
I think it's if I wasn't there, he wouldn't have made the corner. That's as simple as that.
So how do you see it then? Are you not happy with him?
Well, I just even if he thinks that I move it too many times, I moved back to left probably a centimeter or so. If he wanted to overtake on the outside, he should have moved a lot further, and I didn't get in his way. He was just measuring myself, and then he didn't brake. So it's as simple as that.
Ultimately, though, disaster for both of you, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's silly. I mean, we were going to be first and second out of the corner. For me, I kept my place. He would have gained a position, so it's just silly.
As you see, Michael Schumacher with another blistering 1:29.6 for another new fastest lap of the race. I agree with Rubens. I think it was a misjudgment on the part of Ralf Schumacher. You know, when you're in a single-seater racing car and you run into the back of somebody, that's Coulthard off the road again. But you run into the back of somebody, there's only one person you can blame if you've braked a bit too late. I agree with Rubens. He did not significantly move back across the track. I think, and that's why Ralph wasn't so agitated when he was talking to us. That is why Ralf Schumacher seemed to take it quite calmly. And that is turning into a disaster corner for David Coulthard this afternoon. That is where he went off before the restart when he was leading the Grand Prix and dropped back to 5th. He's now up to 4th. And it's cost him 21 seconds. So Coulthard then clearly with a problem. Coulthard with a technical problem. He is going very slowly.
It sounds to me like his engine's cutting out, Martin. You can hear it stuttering and cutting out. David Coulthard is certainly no muppet, and he wouldn't go off the road 3 times like that without some kind of problem. Ted, what can you tell us?
James, something is definitely very, very wrong with this Scotsman's car. About 10 seconds, 15 seconds perhaps before he spun, his engineer Pat Fry and the McLaren technical director Adrian Newey came off their pit wall and scurried with worried looks on their faces towards the back of the garage where they keep the computers, the telemetry, the engine management systems. I don't know if it's engine or not, but something's very definitely wrong.
It sounds, I mean, there's no blue smoke, so it sounds like as he's got 2 cars bearing down on him, it sounds to me as if Coulthard's car had just been an electrical gremlin. Maybe they can adjust it in the pits, but now suddenly it's flying again, isn't it? Surely it's just picked up speed again.
Yep, definitely going quickly. Perhaps the sight of Eddie Irvine about to pass him did that to... Ooh. To bit close. Coulthard getting out of the way though. Irvine moves up. Would you believe it, into 4th place for Jaguar. The entire Jaguar establishment. Nicky Lauda 2. That was a pass for position, Martin, and that's 4th place now for Eddie Irvine. Mika Salo there was just being lapped as well. You saw him going through. Coulthard not coming into the pits though. He's going by, continuing on. Presumably radio traffic between him and the team, just discussing what's going on.
Well, remember, they can now change that car from the pits for the first time. You can now communicate from the pits to the car electronically, and if there is an electrical gremlin or a mapping gremlin in there, because all of a sudden that McLaren took off, didn't it, and then suddenly stuttering back down again, so maybe they're hoping to address the issue and not waste time coming in the pits. So Eddie Irvine then, P4, he's now lapping still 5 to 6 seconds slower than our leader, and we are down to 10 runners still, with Bernoldi a full 8 laps behind as the 11th runner, but under investigation.
It's a bit like watching a drinking competition to see who's going to fall on the floor last, isn't it? At the moment we've got 8 runners in serious contention, with Mika Salo a lap down, Young on a lap down as well now, but Mark Webber is in the points for Australia at the moment. David Coulthard is stuttering along, but he's only 11 seconds ahead of the Australian. Could Webber get past him and take 5th place for Australia? We're approaching half distance in this race. There's been so much going on the track, we haven't even talked about race strategy, but I can tell you it's traditionally a one-stop race this, with that stop around about lap 31. That's what they've done over the last few years. Last year, you'll recall, behind the safety car for 10 laps, they came in a bit later, but around about lap 31, which is in 7 laps' time, we should see the pit stops. Montoya still 14.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher on lap 25, with Raikkonen 0.6 of a second behind in 3rd place. Irvine up to 4th for Jaguar, won here back in 1999. Can he get more points here in 2002? Coulthard, will he make the finish? Webber in 6th. How many points will he get today?
Michael Schumacher, of course, on for a hat-trick of wins here in Melbourne if he completes the race distance this afternoon. You're wondering why he's pushing so hard. He's still coming up with faster sector times and new fastest laps. Will he be stopping a bit earlier than the Williams? I would guess he will stop earlier. I'd be very surprised if he moves it onto a 2-stopper. Probably he wants to get at least a pit stop in time value ahead of Montoya, so he just can't have his race interfered with at all.
Certainly the Williams team were sure that in the practice on Friday, when they run with full tanks simulating the race conditions, they felt Ferrari weren't running with the same amount of fuel as them. Williams traditionally run about 70 or 80 kilos of fuel in those practice sessions, and perhaps Ferrari running a little bit lighter, indicating maybe they might make a slightly earlier stop. Who knows? Maybe that's what is going on in Montoya's mind. He knows he's got a bit of extra fuel in hand, but 15.8 seconds down now on the race leader, Michael Schumacher. It seems as though he's figuring he's going to end up on the podium today, but it's probably going to be in 2nd place. But Kimi Raikkonen in 3rd certainly has other ideas about that, I would imagine.
These two cars on the same Michelin tyres. Mercedes will want to be in front of BMW, and BMW will want to stay in front of Mercedes. And what's happening on the pit wall now, as they'll just be simply working out how to beat each other. Michael's gone.
And Mark Webber has passed David Coulthard. Mark Webber up into 5th place. The 25-year-old Australian driver making his debut in the Australian-owned Minardi team. We'll see him shortly, no doubt. He's gone past David Coulthard, whose McLaren has been misfiring and having all sorts of problems. And this is an unbelievable story here on the streets of Albert Park in Melbourne. There he is, and the crowd, as you can see, they're waving him on as he goes past the start-finish line. They're going to be waving and crossing everything for the next 33 laps. Will this car make it through to the finish? Has it been reliable enough in testing to make him dream, to make him believe it might just be possible to get points on his racing debut? I believe you did, didn't you, Martin?
Yes, I did. I finished 5th, and several drivers have. Jackie Stewart did, John Lacey. Several drivers have scored points in their first ever Grand Prix, but Webber's got a great chance. 21, Enrique Bernoldi has been black flagged. Remember I said they should read the rule book. You can't change cars. I assumed he didn't change cars because they wouldn't have put him back out again. He has been black flagged for using the spare car after the start of the race. So both arrows now out. Louise with Alan McNish.
Is you right now any more than you wanted to be talking to me, but calling her?
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating, there's no question, especially going out so early, because now there's only a few cars running, and I think it's a case of if you finish this race, then you're certainly going to be in the points. Everyone seems to be dropping out left, right and centre.
What happened with you? You just couldn't pick your way through the mess, I guess?
Yeah, there was obviously it started right in the front row when they were going into the first corner, and that sort of filtered back a little bit like a motorway pile-up. and there's a car spun in front. I took avoid action across the grass. When I did come back onto the track, someone came in from the left-hand side and broke the front wheel and the front wing. Was it out straight away?
On the whole, though, a pretty good first Grand Prix.
Yeah, on the whole, I think we did a good first Grand Prix. I was happy with the performance. I think the team did a very good job all the way through the weekend. It's just unfortunate it ends this way.
Yeah, sad for Alan McNish. His teammate Salo is in 9th place. Coulthard just dropping back through the field now, 12-13 seconds a lap off the pace. Whatever the gremlins inside that McLaren, they can't do anything about it at this time. You're on board with 5th place man Mark Webber. He's 80 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. We're on lap 28, but all he's got to do is just keep it between the white lines, keep it off the green slippery stuff, and hopefully they've got some reliability to come home and score some crucial World Championship points. And with travel money, prize money, TV money, that'll be millions of dollars of value for the team, which they won't get until next season, but nonetheless it all counts somewhere along the line. Raikkonen now just 0.6 of a second behind Montoya, and you're watching race leader Michael Schumacher a full 18 seconds clear, and he has backed off that pace a little bit now.
Very unpredictable afternoon here in Melbourne.
Welcome back to the Foster's Australia Formula 1 Grand Prix. What a race it's been, and that is the car of Jacques Villeneuve, the BAR car. He was in 6th position, and Alan Jones, he's gone too.
Eddie, I'm telling you, I reckon they'll be lucky to about 5 or 6 cars to finish this race.
I tell you what, we've been joking all week about doing a Bradbury, and Mark Webber might well do that at the moment, in 5th position in his first race. Fantastic stuff.
Well, it's going, he might win it.
He might well do a Bradbury at the moment. That's the man out in front. Michael Schumacher ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya. But a fantastic race now for Webber. What's his tactics? Obviously, just stay on the black foot.
Oh, absolutely. If I was Paul Stoddard now, I'd be telling him to cut down the revs, brake nice and early, don't take any chances, just bring it home, because if he finishes this race, he'll be in the points.
All right, and just before we go back to James Allen and Martin Brundle, it's worth millions of dollars for the team and the driver to get in the points, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, halfway through the season, they have an assessment of where you are points-wise, and then you go into the second half, and that counts towards travel money and start money and appearance money and all sorts of things. So if you've got a couple of points under your belt, that's worth a lot of money.
Australia's Mark Webber in 5th position in the Minardi. Let's rejoin the race commentary with James Allen and Martin Brundle.
We are now down to 9 runners in this race. Better call a couple of those yellow cabs up. I think we might need some runners and riders before we've finished. So really a high rate of attrition, and of course the monstrous accident of turn 1, lap 1, means we're a bit thin on the ground.
Coulthard up into 6th place though. Jacques Villeneuve disappeared off the timing screens. We're getting information from the pits that he's off the track and that maybe his rear wing came off. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see that before long, but Jacques Villeneuve definitely has dropped out of the order. There's the 2nd place battle between Montoya and Raikkonen. They've just 0.8 of a second between them. You can see the gap is visually almost nothing on the racetrack, and it's been like this for lap after lap as they contest this 2nd place spot.
Be interesting to see what appetite Raikkonen has to have a go if he gets anywhere near Montoya. First Grand Prix for McLaren, you'll be thinking, I've never been on the podium before. 3rd place today, 4 World Championship points. I'll have a go if it looks reasonable, but will he be taking any flyers up the inside? Be interesting to see, won't it?
It certainly will. Well, Louise Goodman caught up with Paul Stoddard on the grid, and he looked like he'd taken some funny pills already. He was so ecstatic. He had no idea what was in store for him this afternoon. His cars were starting 18th and 21st on the grid. There's Villeneuve's car being towed off, but Paul Stoddard's 2 Minardis now both in the points. Webber 5th and Young now, would you believe, Alex Young in 6th place for Minardi, and it did look like the rear wing was missing. Whether it came off Villeneuve's car before the incident or after, I don't know, but you could see it was clearly off the BAR as it was pulled away.
Yes, I remember Villeneuve having a huge crash here 2 years ago when his rear wing failed. Along the back straight heading down towards the chicane at turns 11 and 12, but Coulthard still lapping, but 15 seconds off the pace, and surprising really. I guess on a day like today you might as well plod round. You may still score a World Championship point, but whatever the gremlins are in that McLaren, they can't fix them.
Yes, Coulthard is a lap down, but he's only 4.6 seconds behind Alex Young. So there's something wrong with Coulthard's car, as you say. It's trolling around, making a ghastly noise, but if it keeps on trolling around making a ghastly noise, he's going to run out of people to overtake him soon, and he may just find himself in the points. He wants to win this championship as badly as any of the boys up the front do. Montoya may well feel this is a day for getting second place. He's looking for a championship as well. He doesn't feel he can perhaps challenge Michael Schumacher now, who has a 20-second lead over him. Second place and 6 points will do very nicely, but he's got to keep Raikkonen behind him. And the young Finn, just 22 years old, his first outing for the McLaren team, well, a podium would be a dream start for him. No doubt about that.
Michael Schumacher's about to set the new fastest lap of the race. The fuel load is burning off now. Cars are getting lighter. Over the line he goes. It's a 1:28.628. That is very, very close to the outright lap record. And there's some confirmation that Villeneuve almost certainly did lose his rear wing before he managed to hit the wall. So no, the lap record of 1:28.214. So we're getting close. Looks like Michael could be beating, I don't think he'll be smashing, but he could be beating that lap record before the end of the afternoon, as the track continually now rubbers up and they get more and more grip in the traction zones. The sky still looks good, and no sign of that rain that interrupted qualifying yesterday.
Well, he may be getting close to the lap record, but he's certainly shattered a few records in Formula One in the last few years. The most successful driver in the history of the sport, already 53 wins on the board. 4 times a world champion, chasing Juan Fangio's record 5 world titles, and his 3rd he's chasing as well in a row this year, Michael Schumacher.
Ferrari are the only team using the brake light, the rear rain light. They can, if they want to, use as a brake light, but it didn't do Rubens Barrichello much good in the first corner, did it? Because Ralf clearly wasn't ready for a brake light, let alone seeing it. So Michael then now with a 20.7 second lead, and Montoya's beginning to pick up pace too as his fuel load burns off, and eking out a 2.3 second advantage over third place man Kimi Raikkonen. Irvine still 4th, a minute back. Webber 5th, 23 seconds behind Irvine. Young 6th, a full 54 seconds behind.
Hearing from our F1 ITV pit crew that the Toyota team are out in the pit lane for Mika Salo. It's not been a great afternoon for them. Salo down in 8th place, and David Coulthard, I'm hearing as well, has gone off the track yet again. So whatever is wrong with the back of that McLaren that's causing him to pitch, or possibly even the front of the car, causing him to pitch himself off the road. That's the 4th time he's taken to the grass. Not quite the afternoon he had in mind. There he is, the Scotsman, just being put another lap on by Michael Schumacher, the race leader, on lap 34. Coulthard then 2 laps down in 7th place. And if Salo is coming into the pits, there won't be anyone left on the track behind David Coulthard. He's going to be dead last in 7th place, just hoping that some of the boys in front are going to drop out. An extraordinary afternoon here in Australia.
Montoya continues to drop Raikkonen by a few tenths of a second per lap. Michael's lead now 21.2 seconds. As you can see, the gap up between Montoya and Raikkonen to 3 seconds. Nobody else in sight. Everybody else is going to be lapped. Michael will be lapping Montoya, but could well be close to lapping the rest of the field.
So we've had 2 safety car periods, Martin, one of which lasted about 4 laps, the other one lasted a couple or 3 laps. So about 7 laps of lower fuel usage they had. We expected them to come in around about lap 31 for their one and only fuel stop of the afternoon. We're now on lap 35. I imagine we're going to start seeing some pit crews sometime in the next 2 or 3 laps.
Yes, I think possibly a bit longer than that, depends on their consumption, but some of the cars, although I don't expect the Ferrari's got a bigger tank, some of the cars for this year, I think, are going with bigger tanks, because these long one-stoppers are becoming more and more common through the Grand Prix season. So I think they would have saved about 3 laps of gas. Maybe we're going to see them in 37, something like that.
There's Irvine. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar being lapped. Well, he expected to be lapped today. He was very downbeat about his chances. Nicky Lauda this morning, after the warm-up, which was held in wet conditions, said, always no surprise, bad cars are always good in the wet. I mean, to call your own car a bad car at this stage of the season is a pretty bad thing. Irvine very downbeat about what might happen this afternoon. He probably couldn't believe he was going to end up in 4th place. He doesn't mind being lapped by Michael Schumacher if he could take those 3 points here this afternoon, no doubt about that.
Nicky's right in saying bad cars are quite often good in there. It used to be the case when the chassis would be flexing away, and that made them suitable for the slippery conditions in the rain and hopeless in the dry because they just hadn't got enough consistency. But now it's more about levels of downforce and overall balance, aero balance, than having your chassis flex around, which they most certainly do not do.
Juan Montoya in second place then, put some daylight between himself and Kimi Räikkönen. 2.5 seconds. Finn is now down. And it's been interesting this weekend, Martin, that McLaren have gone over to the Michelin tyres for 2002. It was an interesting decision to split with Bridgestone. They had shared with Ferrari last season to go onto the Michelin tyre. They expected, I think, to take a little time to tune themselves into a totally different kind of tyre, and obviously expected Williams to have a slight advantage over them. The way I read the situation, it looks this weekend as though that's actually how it has been. Williams have had a slightly better handle on these Michelin tyres so far than have the McLaren team.
Yeah, I think McLaren have to learn about really how to maximise that front tyre. It seems as if we saw it all through last year. We think Coulthard has finally ground to a halt. Yes, he has. And, well, he's had a miserable afternoon, hasn't he? 15 seconds. He's had to cruise around slow and off the pace because it's been sick. And now he's run out. And I think that's why he's been heading on. We've seen him fly off the road 4 times. It looks like he's got a box full of neutrals. Quite clearly, he's been having some gearbox problems of some sort, some kind of software problems, and you can hear him revving. It's just not prepared to go anywhere.
Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
James, I can tell you, I was just asking Mercedes' Wolfgang Schattling what the problem was, and he said technical problems, which is stating the obvious a bit. I then asked him if it was an engine problem, and he said no. Now, if you can hear the engine through your headphones still going, then maybe it isn't. But whatever, his engineer, Pat Fry, is constantly been off and on the pit wall. But it looks like whatever it is now, it's certainly terminal.
Yes, sometimes those people down in the pit lane, and I know this to my cost, can be about as helpful as, well, I don't want to say, not much use at all. But David Coulthard certainly out of the race. Look at his left front tyres, almost completely bald. Webber, though, in the pits. The first of our scheduled pit stops from Mark Webber in 5th place. The only man who's likely to take a place off him is Alex Young, his teammate, but he's not going to do that.
Now, keep the revs nice and level, Mark. He's doing that. Hook it up to first gear. Make sure you've got plenty of revs on. There's a fueling problem.
The fuel flap hasn't opened. The fueler hasn't been able to get the hose on.
But it was open when he came in the pits. I'm sure I saw it open when he came in the pits. Although it looks like, yeah, now they've managed to lever it open. And, oh, dear, they've already lost, look, 22, 23... and they still haven't got the fueler hooked up. Did you see the nozzle go in? Yes,
yep.
The secondary phase of it. Yes, it did. So away they go.
Nice and calm. Nice and calm. Don't stall it. Don't stall it. Away he goes. That should be his one and only fuel stop of the afternoon. 34.9 seconds. So about 21, 22 seconds slower than it should have been. But the good news for Mark Webber is that the only man that is racing for position is Alex Young, and he still has to make his stop. And there is Young. Young up into 5th place on his debut, not his debut, sorry, first race of the season with Minardi. Was that a Jaguar behind Young?
It's Della Rosa, of course, who's 1 lap down. So Della Rosa, I think that will cost Mark dearly. There's no doubt about it. It will cost him some track time. Whether it costs him a position remains to be seen. But Räikkönen has obviously had to hurry up from the pit lane. He's suddenly done a 1:28.5. He's been told, get on with it. Montoya's coming in the pits. There is Montoya making his one and only stop of the afternoon, and suddenly Räikkönen is doing the fastest lap of the race, quicker even than Michael Schumacher, of course. And the team won't be best pleased that he's been carrying that kind of pace around with him. And we see the Ferrari mechanics in the pit lane too. They've reacted to Montoya. They know that now Michael comes in, no way Montoya will leapfrog in front of him.
Decent looking stop then for the Williams team. Those tyres look very new to me. Generally speaking, the Michelin tyres, as used by Williams, McLaren, Renault, have been running well and truly scrubbed in. They put a lot of laps on the front tyres and put new rear ones on. You can see confirmation of what Martin was telling you about Räikkönen's fastest lap. But Michael Schumacher into the pits this time by. In he comes, the race leader, enjoying a 22.5 second lead over Kimi Räikkönen. And, well, it's going to not be... in fact, I think Räikkönen may well take the lead. The question mark now is, how much fuel has he got? Obviously, Michael will get him back again at his pit stop. But for briefly, I think briefly, Kimi Raikkonen might well lead a Grand Prix on his debut for McLaren.
It's a relatively short stop, of course, because there's 20 laps or so to the end of the race. So I think it'll be absolutely touch and go whether Raikkonen clears, and no, he's not. Michael is going to retain the lead of the Grand Prix because it was such a short fuel, and the reason is Raikkonen, I believe, is in the pits this time around. Yes, he is. Ted.
Raikkonen is indeed in the pits, Martin. New Bridgestone's on, the fuel's on. His first pit stop for McLaren. He's well used to them by now. The fuel hose is away and he's away. It's a decent enough stop. About 10 seconds, was it?
10.6 seconds, Ted. We could see you in the corner, and of course it's Michelin's that have gone on, not Bridgestone's. But Kimi Raikkonen then, I thought he was about, and he's gone completely sideways into the first corner. No harm done, but that's not going to help his cause in putting pressure on Juan Pablo Montoya. Here he goes, look, cold tyres, and whoops, there we go. Had to give it an armful of opposite lock, and a trip across the grass, but absolutely no harm done.
So another McLaren takes the grass. Cold tyres, Martin. Why so much more slippy? Why you got to be careful with them?
They come out of, they're not cold, of course, they've come out of the blankets, but somehow or other it's not the same as when you've got the whole carcass, the whole tyre fully up to operational temperature. There's a few more degrees to go when you get out there, and also you get a bit of a glaze on the top. You get rubbish that you pick up in the pit lane itself as well. So the first 2 or 3 corners are always more slippery, and you certainly have to learn the characteristics with a new car and with a new tyre, as Raikkonen of course has.
So you're used to feeling the tyres you've just taken off. You're used to getting in the groove with the way they have been, and all of a sudden you've got completely different feeling tyres on your car.
There's an element of that because the car is much heavier because it's taken on a lot of fuel. But what Raikkonen didn't allow for is, as you trundle through the pits and down to the first corner, you're on the inside of the racetrack and you're picking up dust on the surface of the tyre, and you've never got the same amount of grip in that first corner.
So, as Alex Young comes out after his pit stop, he's now dropped back into 6th place. Mark Webber back into 5th. Eddie Irvine is still 4th. Kimi Raikkonen is 3rd. Juan Montoya is 2nd. And Michael Schumacher still leads as Irvine comes to put a lap on Young. That's right, yes, so Alex Young is 2 laps down on Schumacher and 1 lap down, and that's Mika Salo. Now he's racing Young for position, so has Young got some kind of problem, or is it just the old cold tyre syndrome Martin was just talking about?
That's because he's just been in for a pit stop, James. We saw him coming out of the pits, didn't we? But Young, I think, is just building up speed. He's just left the pits, and Salo, I think, will have a good chance to take that 6th place away from him. So 7 runners then, and De La Rosa making the 8th, but he's not shown so clearly on the computer here because he's 2 laps down. So that's why De La Rosa hasn't been making. We've seen him coming through the field, he's lapping quite quickly, hasn't been making up positions. He's 2 laps down.
Let's just remind ourselves then of what's happened in this motor race. Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher into the first corner at the start. Right. Ralf Schumacher flew into the air over the top of Rubens Barrichello, triggering a massive accident. Martin, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just thought the Ferrari sounded different. A lot of traction control through that last corner there. Awful lot of traction control going on, but it's clean and clear now. Sometimes you pick up through the cameras around the circuit, you can hear somebody else's engine note, but I just thought the Ferrari sounded slightly different to normal there, but it doesn't seem to be a problem, does it?
Something to watch out for, though. Your ears don't normally fail you, do they? Over the last 6 years here on F1 ITV, your ears have picked up all sorts of things. I'm surprised you haven't been used by the Americans for spying missions, actually. Listening on Bin Laden and his mates. Anyway, we had an accident at the first corner with Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, and that triggered a big pile-up. We lost both of the Saubers. We lost Jenson Button, whose car caught fire. We lost Olivier Panis in the VAR. Giancarlo Fisichella, after a tremendous effort in qualifying for Jordan, he was out too. Jarno Trulli then found himself in 2nd place behind David Coulthard, threw it all away with a strange mistake through turn 2, which allowed Michael Schumacher up into 2nd place. We've had Takuma Sato briefly in the points, but he's now out of the race. We've had Enrique Bernoldi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the 2 arrows. Strange incident at the start line, which they then were pushed into the pit lane, and they both went out into the race, and mysteriously, very strange circumstances which will need to be explained how they come to find themselves in the race. Anyway, they were both black flag, which means the race is over, and brought in. Jacques Villeneuve, his rear wing fell off and he crashed out. David Coulthard has had all sorts of gear selection problems. We've got just 8 runners left and we're working lap 42 here in Melbourne. You're watching the second place Williams BMW of Juan Montoya. He's 26.3 seconds behind Michael Schumacher on lap 43 here in this 2002 Australian Grand Prix, the opener to the 2002 season. Kimi Raikkonen is 3.5 seconds behind the Colombian in third place. Eddie Irvine still hanging on for Jaguar in fourth. Mark Webber, fifth for Minardi, fifth for Australia. And in sixth place now, Mika Salo, who has passed Alex Young in the second of the two Minardis. That's a points-paying position then on their debut for the Toyota team and Mika Salo. That would be another dream come true, wouldn't it? A lot of dreams being made here.
Alex Young seventh, and De La Rosa. What's amazing about Pedro De La Rosa, who's 2 laps down at the back, is he's lapping some 3 seconds faster than Eddie Irvine, who's up in fourth place. And really, De La Rosa's lapping quicker than Montoya and Raikkonen, even second and third place man. So we don't know why he's a couple of laps down. He may have lost time, of course, in that first corner incident, making a pit stop. But De La Rosa cruising around very quickly at the back, but he'll not make any difference to his overall position unless somebody else fails. But that then is Kimi Raikkonen. He's lost some time somewhere. Montoya's eased out a 4.9 second gap on him, and fighting the car hard, isn't he? I noticed that earlier on in the race too, through turns 3 and 4 there. Raikkonen really having to wrestle the McLaren into those slower corners.
Talk me through the conflicting instincts. You want to move up through the grid, you're Kimi Raikkonen, you're Juan Montoya, you want to challenge, you want to improve your position, but you're also 14 laps away from the finish and a podium on a new car. What do you do? Do you nurse the car, or do you go for it?
Well, you've got to keep going for it. I mean, the team are going to be saying to him, look, we gave you the hurry up just before the pit stop and you did a 1:28.5 when you were lapping in 1:30.7. Where on earth did that come from? And at this level, and it's something I've been saying a bit over the winter, it's just like being in a whole different championship. You drive with a team that is looking for a point-scoring finish and move to a team that's looking for podiums as a bad day, a win is expected type thing, and you've got to be on every corner of every lap. But it's a solid drive from Raikkonen, no doubt about it. But I think, judging by that pace he pulled out on one singleton lap, you've got to be thinking he ought to have been really pressing Montoya home in second place.
So no consolation in his mind in the fact that his teammate David Coulthard has had an unfortunate afternoon, as we look at a slow-mo of Raikkonen locking up. We've seen a lot of that from Coulthard this afternoon. There's no element of it, I've done better than my teammate, therefore it's a good afternoon's work. He was purely thinking of himself.
He'll be pleased with 4 points. Kimi Raikkonen has never been on the podium. This, of course, is only his second season of racing, but we think of him as having a stunning debut year last year as he goes through turn 4 there. But he has yet to be on the rostrum, on the podium at the end of a Grand Prix. Look how dark it is under those trees, and we often talk about that. And 6 is a tricky corner, but this year we haven't seen any drama at all down at turn 6 there. 8 was the sweeping right-hander into turn 9. The curb on the inside, slippery on the exit, and just have to be a little tiny correction. Car not working too bad in those type of corners, it seems. It's the slow ones. Now look, you can't see where the apex is. There it is. It's an act of blind faith to turn in there from 185 miles an hour down to 125, building back up again then to well over 180 miles an hour. And a challenging turn turns in, just nips in a bit at the end. That's where Sato smashed up the Jordan on Friday. And this is a corner where we all crashed in year 1. And since then, we've not had any problems. I think that one corners out. And once again, a big understeer, braking a bit too late. And the final turn, quite cautiously on the throttle, over the start-finish line now, staying to the left, ready for the first right-hander.
That was turn 16 where he ran wide, wasn't it? And that's where Coulthard's been off on the grass twice. And McLaren, you think, got some sort of problem there?
I think, I know from when I ran Michelin's at Le Mans, they definitely have a tendency, they've got a lot of good qualities, traction being one of them, but it does seem, the philosophy they use does seem to make them easier, the philosophy in construction, I should say, makes them easier to just snatch a wheel under braking, in my experience.
The slow corners certainly catching out Michelin and McLaren here this afternoon. Not too many fast corners here at the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne. But let's have a listen to Kimi Räikkönen on the gas. Well, his teammate David Coulthard may be out of the race, but he's enjoying a chat now with Louise Goodman.
I'm not sure if he's going to be enjoying it, but there you go, James. David, you seem to have all sorts of problems from quite early on in that race.
Yeah, I had a gearbox down selection problem, which caught me out obviously at the start, and then when a few laps in, it threw itself into neutral, and then a bit later on in the race, it jammed in sixth gear.
Were the team trying to fix that from the garage? Was there anything they could do to help you?
Well, they obviously get the telemetry, so they can try and get an understanding of what's going on, and naturally we've got certain defaults, but there was nothing that was able to help that, because I think obviously something's broken inside the box.
Big disappointment, because you must have thought your luck was early on, early in that race when you took the lead.
Yeah, obviously I was, well, first of all shocked when I saw Ralf come over the back, and naturally your first concern is with him, but knowing that that's all okay, then as a race you naturally take the places that you gain through incidents, and I thought things were looking good, and then obviously when I first had the problem and ran wide, I thought, you know, this is not looking good, and then I was running clear for a while, and then obviously it became terminal.
Thanks, Big Shane.
So box full of neutrals then, the reason it seems that Coulthard was off the road this afternoon, and that does happen when you coast into a corner and you just can't find the gear. Surprising, you lose the engine braking, makes a huge difference to the deceleration, the rate of deceleration of the car. We're still on board with Kimi Räikkönen. He's really fighting that now, isn't he? He's now still at 4.8 seconds behind Montoya, lapping though roughly the same pace as Michael Schumacher up front. He's got a half a minute advantage. Schumacher now coasting, really.
Yes, Michael Schumacher lapping in 1 minute 30.505. That's around about 2 seconds off the lap record pace of last season, and they were a second faster in qualifying last year. Mark Webber, though, going slowly. Is that a problem, or is he just moving out of the way of Kimi Räikkönen? Let's hope it's no problem. His sector times on this lap have been fine, so no indication of a problem for the Minardi team. We've got 11 laps still to go at Albert Park. The first 11 laps had enough incident to last you half a season. Hopefully the last 11 will have plenty to look at, plenty to talk about, but maybe not so many incidents, because we've still only got 7 cars still running. Michael Schumacher leading, Juan Montoya second, Kimi Räikkönen third, Eddie Irvine fourth, Mark Webber fifth, and Mika Salo in the Toyota on their debut in sixth. Nine laps to go in the opening round of the 2002 Formula One World Championship. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. Michael Schumacher, the race leader, chasing his third consecutive victory here at Albert Park. And who would bet against it with such a short time to go? He's chasing also his third World Championship this year. And what a great way to start the campaign. Juan Montoya, though, will want to close him down before the season's over. He's still in second place as we look at Pedro de la Rosa, who is 5 laps down on the rest of the field in 8th place, just going off the road. Kimi Räikkönen holding on in 3rd place, just under 5 seconds behind the Williams of Montoya. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, he's still 4th. Now, there is an interesting battle going on, because in 5th place, Mark Webber, the Australian on his debut for the Minardi team, is holding on in 5th, but Mika Salo lapping 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap faster. And if he carries on at this pace, he's going to catch the Australian before the end of the race, Martin.
He certainly is, and he's been taking a good 2.2 seconds. Salo, that is, taking that time out of 5th place man Mark Webber for some laps now. So Webber's going to have to step back on the gas. He mustn't think, okay, 2 points in the bag if I just keep it running. He's going to have to fight long and hard, I think, to keep that 5th. Salo only in on him. Young, though, is out of the picture. The 7th place man, De La Rosa 8th, we know, is 5 laps behind the leaders and 2 laps behind the back of the pack. So he's not going to be an issue. Nowhere else in the race is there a particular squabble.
On board, sorry, Martin, with Mark Webber. Let's see if we can hear what the problem is, because he's 2 seconds a lap slower than Salo.
He's short shifting, that's for sure. He's going through the gearbox very early, though, because they don't carry the revs in that car, that the 18,000 revs you'll see with the front runners. But he's definitely not attacking the racetrack hard, and he's going to have to see what his lap is this time around. He's a few hundred meters, and Didn't hear much traction control cutting in there to stop the rear wheels from spinning out of the little left-hander before the right onto the pit straight. At 35.5 again, Salo will be looming up in his mirrors quite quickly. And he's really not attacking the racetrack hard enough now if he wants to keep that 6th place.
There's a great song. 9 seconds, you see the gap. There's a great song by Crowded House, who were a huge act here a few years ago down in Australia. It's called Don't Dream It's Over. And all of Australia is not dreaming it's over here for Mark Webber. Mika Salo is breathing down his neck. Webber could still survive for a points-paying position, though, because Salo is in 6th, Webber in 5th, but 2 points so much better than 1 when you're Minardi. Can he hold on? We've got 8 laps to go, and there's drama all the way through here, this amazing Australian Grand Prix. We had drama at the start with an incident to Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. We've had drama all the way through, and Webber holding on, as Martin says, though, not able to attack the racetrack, and he's sliding around a bit.
Salo's had another 7/10 out of him on the first sector of this current lap. They're coming up to the 2nd sector soon, and let's see if Salo's in another 6/10, so 1.3 up on this lap already. And Mika Salo then will be seeing the gearbox of this Minardi in the not too distant future, and having a look at the way around. And Salo's lapping so quickly, I don't think he'll have too many problems getting past. But Webber then again coming to the end of the 52nd lap of the Grand Prix, and really having to come out of the throttle, isn't he?
Yeah, that was incredible. How quickly, do you hear how quickly he was making those gear changes? Obviously not at all comfortable. He doesn't want to have to put his foot on the gas. Salo on Toyota's debut, I mean, what would that mean to them to be able to get a couple of points as well? It really is a battle. These 2 tail-end Charlies, of course, if you look down the pit lane, they're the last 2 garages in the pit lane. They have none of the privileges of the fat cats at the front, Ferrari and McLaren, who have 4 garages and lots of space for all their stuff and their tyres and blankets. They shove the minnows in Formula 1 down the end. It's purely a meritocracy, this sport. You have to succeed in order to be given the benefits, and both of these teams so richly deserve something after a fantastic afternoon sport. Mika Salo, though, I can tell you, has 311 kilometres an hour straight line speed. He was the fastest man through the speed traps, both yesterday in qualifying and today this afternoon in the warm-up. And so if he does catch Webber, he shouldn't have too much problem getting past him on the straight.
Well, Webber came from 18th on the grid, found his way through the carnage of the first corner. And Salo from 14th. We saw Salo back to front in that first corner incident, so clearly lost some time. Montoya still taking the rip-offs off the helmet. You have to be so careful with those, not to let those go in your own airbox. That happened to me in the early days before I worked that one out. You can pull them up, you've got to make sure they go out the side, otherwise they can get sucked into your own airbox, which of course is just above your head. And Raikkonen has brought the gap down to 4.3 seconds then. They're on lap 53. It's turn 5 for Montoya. Michael Schumacher cruising up front, 28 seconds in the lead, lapping now in the 1:31s, having done 1:28 earlier in the Grand Prix. So Michael just cruising. Montoya is going to have to pick it up a little bit, and Raikkonen still needs to be keeping the pressure on. Can't help but feel Raikkonen had a shot at 2nd place this afternoon.
Yes, he maybe had a shot, maybe he could have done more. I'm sure there'll be a debrief afterwards with McLaren. They'll be talking about the problems for David Coulthard, a box full of neutrals in that car. But Kimi Raikkonen seems to have a decent racing car underneath him. Maybe he could have done better, maybe he could have attacked more. And they will be talking about that afterwards. Still, he's on course for a podium, his first run out for McLaren. Eddie Irvine is on course for 3 points for Jaguar, and that would be a terrific haul for them after what was an absolutely miserable qualifying session. They were embarrassed by how slow their car was, and if Irvine can bring home 4th today, it will prove that this is a topsy-turvy world, and no mistake. 5th, though, Mark Webber, and the bad news for Aussies, I'm sure you're all on the edge of your sofas from Brisbane to Alice Springs. I'm sorry to tell you that the Springs aren't going to take it, because he's 5.1 seconds only ahead of Mika Salo. The Toyota is bearing down on him with 5 laps to go.
And Salo 1.5 seconds up on this current lap in the first 2 sectors. So we're going to see a close run for 5th and 6th. Montoya, can he keep Raikkonen at bay? Can Raikkonen find a way of getting back into the 1:28 as he did just before his pit stop? They're running nice and low on fuel, of course. with just 5 laps remaining.
Before we get into the drama of this finish, Martin, let me just ask you a couple of questions. What does this say, this race, about the state of play in 2002 between the teams?
It says to me that Ferrari have got the edge, really, unfortunately, even with the old car. I hope their new one's not significantly better. Of course, they've got an optimised package. They came here to a racetrack that they know well, with a car that they know very, very well, and they put it on. It's been inclement weather conditions all weekend, variable stuff, and of course they had less time on the track to sort out cars like this McLaren or the Williams, new packages. McLaren on Michelin for the first time, so let's hope they've got plenty of scope left to improve that. Otherwise Ferrari have clearly got a big edge.
Lap 55 then, just counting them down to the finish, and everybody in the Minardi pit will be counting the laps down. Mark Webber now just 3.6 seconds ahead of Mika Salo. You'll soon be able to look at a picture of Webber and see Mika Salo in the background. That's how close it's getting. There's the race leader, Michael Schumacher. And with so much going on, so many fantastic performances, I have to ask you, who's your driver of the day? And it could be anybody here, really, couldn't it?
I think it could. I mean, it's an odd day, and you can't read too much into those that pick up points that haven't. I mean, it's great for Mark Webber, it's great for Jaguar, it's great for Toyota. You can't really read too much into it when you've got cars flying through the air, and we lost 9 cars in the first corner of this Grand Prix, if you remember. It's got to be Michael, really. Stayed out of trouble. Was biding his time till he got past Montoya. Good move around the outside of Montoya to retake the lead. So I think it'd have to go to Michael Schumacher. But all of these guys have been through a fairly traumatic afternoon.
So Martin Brundle's driver of the day, Michael Schumacher, not for the first time, and I've no doubt not for the last. There's Mika Salo, though, the bogeyman of Australia. Look at that. It's 2.37 seconds, and we've still got only 3 laps to go. Can Webber survive in 5th place? It looks like he's going to score a point anyway, because Alex Young is down in 7th and Pedro de la Rosa no longer classified, but Salo on the attack. He wants points for Toyota on their debut.
Well, Mark's realised what's going on now, and he's got back into the 1:33s, and last time around actually was a 10th faster than Mika Salo, so he's not going to give up that place easily. Salo's, of course, got a lot more experience behind the wheel of a Grand Prix. Well, and now Salo is just going to smell his prey and realise that Webber is struggling to maintain this pace.
It's not really fitness, surely, Martin, because Webber's only 25, Mika Salo's a veteran at 35, and we know Webber is very, very fit because he cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End recently. A strange mistake there.
He's just got in, he's trying very hard. I think his tyres are getting down a little bit. That cost him dearly. But fitness is one thing. Grand Prix race fitness is entirely different. You use your muscles in a different way. You're strapped in the car so tight, much of your body can't function properly. So I don't know if Mark Webber's managed to complete the non-stop race distance in a Formula 1 car. I suspect not.
He's certainly completed plenty of race distances in a Formula 3000 car, but they're much shorter, much lower G-forces. And look at Salo thinking about a way to get past this Minardi. It's powered, the Minardi, by the Aciatec engine, formerly the Peugeot engine, and it's the least powerful engine in Formula 1. Now, the Toyota wouldn't claim to have the most powerful engine in Formula 1, but certainly on the speed traps, they've not been any slouches, and Salo is right in his wheel tracks now.
I think it's game over. I think Salo will have the grunt down the pit straight to take a reasonably easy pass. 2 laps to go, as you can see, and Webber goes defensive, and now he's really going to take some pain, and Mika is more experienced than to take a wild dive, but he needs to stay calm. Salo needs to stay calm and just get nicely in the slipstream zone of that Minardi, which surely he is, and he should. He lost a bit, didn't he, on the traction on the exit? And now it's going to be touch and go whether he can get down that pit straight. Nowhere near having a go, is he? He did not have the drive off the last corner. Mark Webber will be very pleased to know that. Salo did not have the traction off the last corner, even if he had the grunt down the straight.
Well, it's very interesting, Martin, because I was listening to Salo doing his practice starts, and it didn't seem to me that the traction control... Salo spun it! Oh, Australia rejoice! I'm sorry, Mika Salo, I'm not against you, but Australia certainly is. He's thrown it away with 2 laps to go, and Webber can really put the hammer down now. Martin.
There he is, he went in too deep, got onto the marbly stuff on the outside, and a simple little spin. He's not going to lose a position over it, Mika Salo. He'll stay 6th, so he'll still get a World Championship point. And that was a bit of a clumsy error. I think his eye was on Mark Webber and not on the racetrack.
Well, the eyes of the crowd are only on one place. They came here to cheer Michael Schumacher. They'll be doing that, but nothing like as loud as they'll be cheering Mark Webber. But the reigning champion, he's done it all today. He kept out of trouble at the start when his teammate Rubens Barrichello collided with his brother Ralf Schumacher, taking 9 cars out at the start of this crazy Grand Prix. Michael kept out of trouble. He managed to start 4th at the restart, and he had Juan Montoya, David Coulthard and Jarno Trulli to contend with. He picked them off with precision, made a small mistake which allowed Montoya to pass him, but he then repassed Montoya in a battle of attrition between the two great fighters of Formula One. He then kept his nose clean. Ferrari have been clever. They brought the 2001 car here, asking for reliability over the 2002 car, and Michael Schumacher has done the business. 3 years in a row in Australia, Ferrari have won once again. Michael Schumacher wins the 2002 Australian Grand Prix. Wonderful performance by him. Juan Montoya is going to finish in 2nd place. He's 24 seconds behind on the road, and Kimi Raikkonen on his debut for McLaren will get the final podium position. 2 arms aloft though for Michael, and as you said, Martin, a pretty perfect drive today.
I think it was, and he didn't lose his head, did he, early on. 6 points then for Montoya. Raikkonen still snaking around in the background for his first podium in Grand Prix racing and 4 World Championship points. Let's just run through the retirees while we're waiting for... Well, Irvine's a lap behind. Everybody else is a lap or more behind. Irvine in 4th, 1 lap behind. Webber 2 laps behind as he goes over the line to... we're waiting, hopefully they'll pick Webber up.
I think Webber's crossed the line, actually. I have a feeling he's just crossed the line. I think we were following Michael Schumacher, but Mark Webber is the man. He's come through, and he has got 5th place on his debut. Emotional moment.
I was getting worried for him. You know, he was only 2.6 seconds ahead of Salo. He was cruising around talking to the crowd, and Salo was homing in on him and crossed the line just 2.6, but sure, he had it under control. 2 World Championship points then for Minardi and Mark Webber. Mika Salo coming in for Toyota and to pick up the final World Championship point of the afternoon. And there then the crowd are rejoicing. They've seen a Ferrari win, they've seen an Aussie come home in 5th. Just running you through the retirements. Coulthard, mechanical problem. Villeneuve lost a rear wing, we think. Frentzen disqualified. Bernaldi disqualified for for pit lane and start infringements. Sato caught up in the shunt and lost time a little bit later on in the first corner. Trulli spun out. We think he lost his traction control. Spun out while he was well up in the top 3. Barrichello taken out in the first corner by Ralf Schumacher, who ran into the back of him. Fisichella then caught up in that accident, as was Massa, Heidfeld, Button. We saw him on fire trying to get back to the pits, but it didn't happen. Panis and McNish also then all out in the first corner as Mark Webber punches the air, celebrates with the crowd. Webber's punching the air as hard as Michael Schumacher, isn't he?
Well, he's won his own Grand Prix today. There's no doubt about that. Formula One is about the front race. It's between Ferrari, McLaren and Williams. It's about a middle race which exists with Jordan, Sauber, Renault, teams like that. And then there's a little race at the back which is to try and score maybe 1 point in a World Championship season. And would you believe it, Mark Webber scored 2 this afternoon. An absolute dream. Mika Salo on the debut for Toyota. Let's not forget about them. A terrific effort in 6th place. That'll give them a lot of encouragement. Everyone was wondering how long it would take before Toyota scored their first point. Well, didn't take too long, did it? And Eddie Irvine. Let's not forget about Jaguar, because that's been a remarkable story today. From 19th on the grid to 4th. Ted Kravitz, though, is with the victorious engineer, Ross Brawn.
Yes, James, he's actually just talking now. Hang on a sec, here we go.
I was quietly confident. I didn't want to say too much, but the car was so good at Suzuka, and we've made improvements with it since then. And the drivers all had very good testing programs over the winter, very fit. Tyres were developed.
That noise you can hear, James, is Michael Schumacher just lighting his wheels as he comes in. Let's hear what Ross has to say again.
With this car, so, but it's a high standard we've got to reach with a new one.
Ross, it's not bad for a second-hand car, is it?
if you want to call it that, I'd never really thought of it. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago this sort of approach was standard. You took your old car to the first 3 races, so with no complaints for sure.
Schumacher then in Parc Fermé. He will have to be weighed now, and they'll check the car over. Top 3 always straight into Parc Fermé.
3 wins in a row in Australia then for Michael Schumacher, 4 in a row for Ferrari, because Eddie Irvine won here in 1999. So it really has been a fantastic story. And there's Paul Stoddard. He's just run out of words, probably run out of adjectives, run out of emotions, run out of feelings. How can you possibly put into words what it feels like when you've invested so much of your own money to come into Formula One at a time when it's manufacturers, it's Toyota, it's BMW, it's Mercedes-Benz, Ford Motor Company, some of the richest and most powerful companies in the world, and you're trying to compete against them with a small Mar and Par operation based in Faenza with a small offshoot in Ledbury. What do you do? How do you compete? How do you score points? Well, you come to Australia, you put an Aussie driver who's 25 years old in his first race, you stick him in the car, and then you hope that perhaps 13, 14, maybe even 15 of the people in front of you take themselves out of the race, and you can score some points. And that is what has happened today. Formula One does occasionally have some amazing stories.